welcome to our television show, It Takes a Village, which is a cable TV show to provide information and resources to foster and adoptive families in Rhode Island as well as Massachusetts. And today we're going to talk about resources and information relating to children and maybe some of their concerns about going back to school, and also some different community resources that are out there that families can access. With me today, I have Kristen Sorrell, who is a licensed, independent social worker. Clinical social worker. I forgot the clinical.
Yes.
And my co-host, Rachel Briggs.
Hello.
So welcome to our show today, ladies.
Thank
and
you.
Let's get started by talking about preparing kids for this first couple of months of school coming up.
Okay. So when Rachel contacted me, she asked me to talk a little bit about the anxiety or stress that can happen when kids return to school, especially now with COVID. But first, just to kind of talk about what anxiety or stress really is, and excuse me if I have my notes, because going on a cable show, it's a little stressful. So, but anxiety goes by a lot of different names, and I say that because not everyone's going to define what they feel as anxiety. Sometimes they'll say, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm worried. But it's just an emotion. It's an emotion like any other. It's normal. It's when it becomes problematic, interfering with your life, that causes issues. But it's really just our brain and our body reacting to a stressful situation or to even a positive situation. You always hear about people having cold feet before the wedding. Mm-hmm. Weddings are fun, but you can be quite anxious. So I figured we wouldn't talk about the more intense types of anxiety, like OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, or post-traumatic stress disorder, but just focus on the three more common ones that might affect the parents and kids. One of them is just the typical anxiety we feel from time to time. Starting a new job, getting married, the first day of school. The second one is separation anxiety, and this one is probably likely to come up, especially if kids are going to school for the first time this year, if they're the little ones. It's very normal for a child to feel like they don't want to be separated from their parent. They don't want to be separated from their caregiver, and that's okay. But they'll cry. They'll be what parents describe as clingy, but it just, if it doesn't fade in a couple of weeks, that's when you really want to think about calling the pediatrician and asking, hey, I need some advice. My child's still kind of crying, or they've regressed and now they're wetting the bed, or they're more withdrawn. And then the third type is generalized anxiety disorder, and that's just regular anxiety and worry and stress compounded by 10. Like it becomes the type of worry and anxiety, you're living your life and you cannot stop these thoughts. You can't stop worrying about stuff. You can't stop obsessing over them.
So like a child has to go to school and they're worried.
Yep.
Which is
completely normal.
Completely normal.
Getting a new teacher.
Getting a new teacher.
Don't know
could
who
be
that
going
might
into
be.
a new school too.
Could be
if they're
new
going
school,
into
right,
middle school from
right.
elementary.
But then when it's like times 10, they just won't get out of bed.
Possibly, yeah. They might not get out of bed. It's just this, their eating habits might change. They might not eat.
Okay.
They might eat more out of stress. They might eat less. They might sleep more. They might sleep less. They might have difficulties with concentration, attention. A lot of kids have that problem anyway. Excessive crying, irritability is a big one, especially for teens. You see more irritability in the older kids because that's how they are. Unexplained physical stuff too.
Yeah.
My stomach hurts.
Yeah. Okay. So with the teens, because we have a lot of teens in foster families.
Yeah.
So you said developmentally they're irritable and that developmental age, but with the anxiety you might see it.
It's a change, yeah. So if you're just seeing like, okay, I would say like the first couple of weeks of school, you're seeing some changes and they're just seeming kind of stressed out. That's okay. If it doesn't settle by like the third week, especially the fourth week, if you don't see those signs and symptoms going down, call your pediatrician, or if your child already has a therapist or a counselor, call them. But reach out to someone, especially if their anxiety or their stress is out of proportion to the situation. And Rachel's smiling because we work together.
Yeah.
And I did not create it, but it's called How Big Is My Problem? And then it's How Big Is My Reaction? And so we amended it for one of her kids, where it's how big is my problem? Is it ant-sized or is it elephant-sized? To me, elephant-sized means you're on fire. You're on fire, the house is on fire, the world's on fire. So it's not, it's almost never a 5. So you can help your child say, okay, that's how big it seems to you. Are you on fire? You're not on fire, so that's good. So it's not a 5, you know. And then you also have to kind of define it. So like for one of your kids, I think it was like, or another client, it was like I stubbed my toe. That's a 1. You know, that's not a 4 or 5. So but I think you guys have used it successfully.
Oh yeah, and I love how it helps the child to feel in control.
What age group did you?
You can adapt it to anybody.
To any age, really.
You'll
I
find it
work
on
with-
Pinterest. How big is my problem?
All right.
And
well,
then
we'll have to put that up at the end of the show because that sounds
provide
like
a
a
link.
good
Yeah.
link for people to see.
Yeah, and it
yeah.
does make them feel in control of their body. And a lot of kids with the anxiety, but just living in foster homes, being adopted, their lives are changing constantly. They feel out of control, like they have no control. And how big is your problem has helped my children to feel in control of their body. They can say, oh, we've worked with it so much that now
it's second nature.
they go, that was an ant.
That was an ant. Because it's like an ant. We heard like a bird
Well,
or
it
a
sounds
horse.
like a fun thing.
Oh, it's
You know,
fun. It's
and
really fun.
Especially for kids that are, you know, may not be, may have had to start a school after the school year because that's when the placement happened.
Yes.
So now they're
Yes.
coming into a classroom, the kids all know each other,
Yep.
and you're the kid that no one knows.
Yeah.
Right.
That's hard. So that sounds like a good
Yeah.
thing to
It is, and I
potentially-
often, I often joke with my children about if the problem gets a little bit bigger, it's a bird. So
Yes.
I'll say, "Oh, there's a lot of birds flying around here."
Because we didn't think the number system, rating it 1 through 5, would work. So Rachel was like, "Oh, what about animals?" Or I said, one of us said it, and so then we picked the animals.
Yeah, it's more visual because
Yes,
kids
especially
can
if you
You
can't
can
read.
identify with it.
absolutely.
Yes.
What really
Perfect.
does a 3 look like,
Right,
right?
Yeah.
right.
But if you say
dog.
it's a dog, they know the size
4
of
is
the
a
dog,
horse.
right? So yeah, it really
it,
helps.
yeah.
So, what can parents do? I know we said anxiety is a feeling.
Yep, you can-
And
yeah.
it can get out of hand, and then parents may see these different signs in their children,
Yes.
change in irritability, sleep,
Right.
eating habits.
And again, it's a change.
It's a change.
And if the change keeps going, then you would, get more concerned. But if it starts to taper off, then that's perfectly normal.
Right. What other things can parents do to help their children?
So one of the biggest things people can do to help the kids out is to just maintain a routine. Have as just, and you probably, if people are thinking, oh, I don't have routines. Yeah, you do. You get up and you go to school, you go to work, you take the same route to work. So just kind of doing the same things that you've always done, preparing the kids if there's going to be a change. So say if you knew you were going to be coming home late from work and you know one of your kids is having a hard time separating from you or just worries about you because they have anxiety in general, you could say, no, I want to remind you, I'm going to be home late. I'm going to come home at 6 instead of 4:30. I have to go to the dentist.
Right.
So that can help, preparing them for some changes. Just give your child a heads up, if you think something's going to change. But generally eating dinner at the same time, doing everything as normal as possible.
I think another thing that's making the kids anxious is the potential for distance learning to happen
Yes.
again.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids, especially kids that have developmental issues that struggle with learning, using a tablet or a Chromebook was really difficult.
Yes.
And
It really was.
they don't know what is going to happen in the next couple of months, and could that happen? We already know that the kids have to wear masks at school, as well as the teachers and any visitors.
Yes.
So that's a
Because
cause for stress.
Because I do home-based services, I work for a large nonprofit in the state, and we service the whole state. And in my department, we service from 3 years old to age 21. And it's home-based services. Some people might be familiar. There's HBTS, home-based therapeutic services, and then there's PASS, personal assistance services and supports. And through those programs, which I've done for several agencies over the years, I saw, because we kept providing services all the way through COVID. We didn't pull our staff out of the homes, I think, unless the parents wanted to, for safety. But every kid fell behind in school. I can't think of one because almost all of our kids have IEPs, and the stress for the parents.
Yeah.
There was one family I worked with, and she had a kindergartner, she had a 2.5-year-old, and she had a first grader. Now the kindergartner can't read, and so, and the first grader's got all sorts of issues going on, and so she's got them in 3 different places, and there's one of her, and her husband's upstairs distance working, and he can't hear tantrums because he's on the phone, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of tantrums during distance learning.
Yeah.
You might have experienced some of them.
Yes, and it makes me think about the trauma, when we talked about trauma before, and how children, when they've experienced trauma, then they become hypervigilant to notice the triggers before the actual event.
They're
So
anticipating
if they're anticipating, we might go back to distance learning while they're in school, they might not be able to focus because they're thinking, okay, the teacher's talking to another teacher. Does that mean we're going distance? Like they're looking for all those little
kids
pieces
make up stories in their minds.
Right.
before it happens. And it's their,
That's typical for kids of a
it's
certain
their
age in
need to
particular.
try to cope, to try to know what's going to happen beforehand. So
They've already made the story go in their head.
Yeah.
One of the other things parents can do is be informed. And by being informed, I mean, please don't get your COVID news or anything off of a Facebook meme.
Right. Be accurate.
You have to, because a huge contributor to anxiety is fear. When you become, as soon as we all start becoming truly afraid, the way I think we did at the very beginning of the pandemic last year, it takes hold and it will shove you into a stampede of fear and you're going to go over the edge. And you don't want to be in that place with your kids.
I like that visual.
Thank you. It's kind of the Lion King, the bad tragic scene. So don't get your news from like a third hand. My uncle's cousin's dog's son had this experience. I always say do go to reputable websites. Go to the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC. They have great stuff. I know I'm going to give you several links. Also listening or to NPR, National Public Radio. Very good, thorough. They're the Associated Press. You just want to make sure you're getting factual stuff. So when those stations put stuff out, it's been verified. And then once you feel informed, tell your kids that you are their source of news, not their friends, not idiosyncratic Uncle Henry. Just you're their source, and that if they have questions, they can come to you.
So in what ways can parents help themselves? Because not only are the children feeling anxious about COVID, and school, and regression, slide in academics. So how can parents help themselves?
So one of the things that is sort of like helping the kids and helping themselves, I had thought to myself, okay, you have to let your kids know it's okay to be upset. Whatever they're feeling, even if they come to you and they say, I'm afraid the roof's gonna fall down. And if you say to them, that's not gonna happen, it's kind of dismissive. You just wanna say, and Rachel does this beautifully with her kids. She's like, really? Oh, okay, well, tell me what's going on. Why do you feel, it's just, she's just great with the kids. And so you're validating how they feel, like, oh, yeah, that is a scary thought. Tell me more about what made you think of that? And then, because you want to resist the urge to minimize or dismiss it, and then you want to share with them, okay, I can see why you're feeling that way. You sound stressed, you sound anxious, whatever the word is you use in your home. And then saying, explaining to them, well, this is what I do when I have those thoughts. This is what I do. Do you want to go for a walk? Even if it's around the block, it's 5 minutes out of your day, or do you want to just listen to some music? Let's dance it out, whatever it is.
That's a really good point. How do you help the child to minimize their anxiety? Not only at school.
Without invalidating them.
But recognizing that they have that feeling, and then for them figuring out what can I do to minimize that. When I'm in school, what can I do to minimize that when I'm at home?
Right.
Yeah. I heard the best quote, and it said, your calm is your children's calm.
Yes.
True.
Because
so, like,
absolutely true.
It is role modeling.
It's role
so
modeling.
if you handle whatever they say, my 7-year-old daughter has been expressing a lot about, I don't want to die. Someone's going to die.
Yep.
And we don't watch the news all that often. And I always say, I'm not the only one teaching my child.
Yeah.
She's getting information from somewhere.
Yeah.
And because of the information she's getting, she's fearful about dying because I'm sure she's hearing about COVID deaths. and
You bring up a
this,
good point because
you
some
know.
kids are going to go on social media or just Google what does COVID look like, and you're going to come across videos on YouTube. There's
Right.
good documentaries about it. It's not child friendly. It's a documentary about COVID over what happened in the first several weeks in say Italy or even here. That's probably not something you want your younger kids to see. So being able to take care of yourself means also so you can take care of your kids. Don't get wrapped up in, oh my God, the world's falling apart, it's falling apart, it's falling apart. There's a lot going on in the world right now. And this is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. If parents can think back to how their world fell apart, I think all of us felt like we were robbed of our sense of safety, then that's kind of what might be, most of us at our age haven't lived through a pandemic before, and neither of the kids, and so it's new to everybody. But I would say if parents can just, and they're gonna laugh, try to get enough sleep, try to stay hydrated. If you can't eat healthy, eat something, eat regularly. Have contact with the friends and families and coworkers that don't cause you stress, because we all have those in our lives. Stop trying to be everything to everybody. You're not a super parent. You don't need to be a super parent. We have enough superheroes. We don't need more. And then really, don't lose your sense of humor. And you can joke with your kids and do the silly things, because laughter is great. Laughter is awesome. It can break the tension. Physical exercise, we all struggle with that. But then also, probably most importantly, recognize when you, the parent, need help. If you don't have a therapist or a counselor, then talk to your own doctor, or you can go on, I think it's psychology.com or psychologytoday.com. I'll give you the link.
Okay.
You can find somebody by the type of insurance, and et cetera. And, but it's easy, but talk to your doctor even and just say, I'm really struggling. And it's okay to struggle. It's not okay to go over the cliff, because that's going to hurt you, obviously.
I think that's one of the main reasons that we have the support groups that we have through the village, and they're continuing to be through Zoom. But it's for people to basically meet some other folks and have a conversation.
Yes.
And to learn, well, how would I deal with this? What can I do?
Yes.
Where should I go? What can be helpful? Because, people need to talk with people that have walked in their shoes, that have had that experience.
Yeah.
And then having access to potential therapists if kids need it. That's hard. Where do you go to basically start? You're saying start with your doctor, but
Or the
sometimes
back of your insurance card.
Yep.
To call the insurance and say,
sometimes the doctors don't know that.
No, sometimes you're right, they don't.
So it's helpful to know where would a family go, and I think they could go to the support groups that we run through the village and speak to those other experienced families, or on our Facebook pages.
It's a good point you make, because do you remember I had a parent who was really struggling with a similar issue that one of your children struggled with, and you only spoke briefly, but every time I went to the house, she was just like, are other parents feeling this way? Are other parents? And yes, I said, before you even finish your question, yes. And I hooked her up with Rachel just so they could talk a bit.
Right.
And it was useful, I think, for the mom, even though it was brief.
Yeah, no, it was just like that vent to get some of the pressure off.
Other people feel this way.
And I just found that most of the schools are partnered with a mental health agency.
Yeah.
So if you're noticing signs of changes in behaviors in your children, and you can talk to your guidance counselor at your school, and if they can't provide supports, it gets a little bit worse, they can then refer you out, because I've used that service.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to say real quick was, if your child has an IEP, which probably a lot of them do, a lot of the kids I work with do, if you see some of the signs and behaviors and emotions that are really interfering with schoolwork, whether at home or the teachers are seeing it, ask the IEP team to reconvene and see if there can be additional accommodations made.
And that leads us to some other resources that we have for families.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the community resources that are out there all year round.
Yes.
For people to be able to access. One of the ones that I want to bring up is Foster Forward, which is another community organization. They also have a website, Facebook page. We'll put it up at the end of the show. But they have a storefront. And I don't know that a lot of people know that
didn't
they
know
have
I
a
did.
store. There you go.
I had no idea.
They have a storefront right on the Providence Pawtucket line off Main Street. And in the storefront, they carry a range of clothing for babies, infants, all the way up through young adults. They have some backpacks that are available for kids. And so sometimes kids get anxious about going to school and not looking good. And
Yes.
being able to
Absolutely.
have some clothing that is
Yes.
kind of nice. Fairly new shoes or look good, a new backpack. That makes them feel really good about being able to go back
Yes.
to school. We also have some stuff over at the Village, and so people should reach out to both of our organizations, Foster Forward as well as the Village, and check out what we have. And we also just set up, thanks to Kelly, a separate Facebook page that just talks about our closet. Our closet is mostly for infants up to about age 5, whereas Foster Forward is from infants up to young adults. So check out both of the organizations and see what we have so you can get some new stuff.
On Broad Street, there's actually a place called Open Closet.
Yes.
And yeah, I've donated tons of stuff to them.
Yes.
And there's also, I'll send you the person's contact, but there's also a person who's not far from our office who does massive drives through the Next Door app, which is another good place to find recommendations for therapists, dentists, pediatricians. And she does a lot of donations.
And staying on the clothes resource, because I think it is important. Like, it does make you feel different when you have nice clothes.
It does.
Like, I know when I get dressed up, I feel different. You
Yes.
know what I mean?
Yes.
So there's another organization in Providence called Clothes to Kids. And how it works is you can shop there twice a year.
Oh.
And it's free. And it's not for any children under 5.
Oh.
So I thought when you said the Village has up to 5,
Right.
this is like a
The older,
nice
the older kids'
yeah,
clothes is actually harder to
continuation.
find sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
so
Yeah.
they will let any school your child has to be going to school, and there's a referral process, and you can go to their website, which we'll put up at the end of the show. But it's very simple, and what I loved, not only can you be referred by an agency you work at. I know a lot of resources, they're like, oh, you need to
need a
show
referral.
proof of assistance. But they take referrals from community advocates. So if you're going to a support group and the facilitator says you
yeah.
need this resource, they can refer you to
Yeah.
Clothes to Kids in Rhode Island. So
Yeah.
we'll put up that website
Okay. Cool.
at the end of the show.
I think
yeah.
another thing that helps minimize some anxiety is when kids are active in sports or
Absolutely.
activities.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people know about this website. It's called kidsouthandabout.com.
Oh, yeah.
And they list a number of activities, sports, cooking, arts, and so those kinds of activities are either free or really low cost. So that's something that people should take a look at. They have a great newsletter that they put out that talks about, here's something I'm looking at, after school and Saturday classes,
Ooh,
which is
nice.
really kind of nice for
Very
families
nice.
to
Very
have
nice.
that. And something for the kids to look forward to.
Yes.
If it's something that they're interested in, that also helps to minimize the anxiety, because now I got something to look forward to.
Yes.
I'm looking good, I just got some new clothes,
Yes.
I got something fun
It's
I'm
the
gonna be
social
doing.
connection, because a lot of
Absolutely.
I mean, we had this little period of time where things opened up, and now we're kind of going back a little bit for safety, which is
Yep.
understandable. But it's irritating to people, and it's disappointing to people,
Right.
especially kids. They missed out on a lot of big
Right.
events
Yeah.
and
Right.
seeing their friends in person, and
Yes.
birthdays and graduations. So that's
Yes.
that's great.
Yep.
And
Do you
a
have
lot
another
of-
one, Rachel,
Yeah,
you
and
wanna mention?
a lot of the community rec centers in the city, that there's one in every neighborhood in Providence.
Yeah.
Whether it's attached directly to your school or it's a little walk from your school.
Right.
And I think some of them do provide transportation, pick
Like
up
from
and
the
drop.
school to
Yes.
the- yeah.
So those are free. You don't have to pay anything. You do have to sign up just so they have,
Emergency
contact
contacts, yeah.
information. But those are great. They're, you could go in and see my son, he goes to the after school rec, And I bring him up specifically because he's on the autism spectrum, and some might assume, oh, my child has this going on or this challenge, and I'm afraid to put him in or her in a space where they don't have support one-on-one.
Right.
My son goes and he does very well. The staff at the rec centers are very knowledgeable.
I find that more now.
Yeah, and
people,
very
people
helpful.
understand now more. They're like,
Very helpful.
I get it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and there is one more I wanted to talk about. With all the anxiety and a lot of what we'll see with our children will happen at home.
Yes.
You know, because that's their safe place.
Yes.
You know, and when you said talk to the teachers or the IEP team
Yes.
to review services, I would recommend and encourage parents to please start a communication log
Yes.
with your teacher.
Either by email,
Something.
written,
And then
texting. Some are texting.
something. So texting, and you, I had seen something posted, in a family at the village said they communicated with their teacher when their child was having a rough night, the night before.
Yes.
They would just text, handle with care.
Yes, I saw that. I
I
saw
like
that
that.
post.
It was beautiful. And
I
I
like
thought,
that.
and
Yes.
then as
Yes.
you meet your children's teachers and whoever they come in contact with, you can let them know, if I text you, handle with care, then you
Then
know
it's a heads up.
It's a heads up,
something,
yeah. Right.
something occurred. You don't need, maybe you can get into specifics or whatever, but do an extra check-in.
Right.
But no, you may see something different in the child's behavior
Yeah.
that day.
Right.
You know, so that's a good way
Excellent.
to
Yep.
keep that communication with the teachers, you know, and just
Because they're
just
going to
keep
be stressed
talking.
out too.
Yeah,
So we have
definitely.
1 minute left. So I know you wanted to talk about word of mouth, something that
Yes.
you'd like to share.
Yes, so
And let's,
yeah. So word
See
of
what you
mouth
got.
is an initiative again through the Lynn program. I was part of their internship, and I developed a service program where mine, word of mouth, is just to present a resource to
Yes.
families. And so the resource this time through word of mouth is this book. It's called the Worry Less book, and it talks about what we've been talking about today: anxiety and what it is, and ways to worry less. And it's really an easy read. As you can see,
Oh, I
it's
love it.
like
It's like a
it's got
comic book.
cartoons
it's
in
like
it.
a cartoon. And what I do with my older kids, because they're older.
Where did you get it? Did
I-
you order it from Amazon?
No,
or
actually,
did
I
you
got
get
it from a bookstore, a local
Okay.
bookstore in the city,
We'll
but
have
it's
to
on
put that up
Amazon.
on
Yeah.
the links.
What I do is I do bypass reading, and what that means is I'll open the book next to my older children.
Yes.
Who don't want me to read a story to them, which is
Yes.
fine,
Okay.
but I'll read it out loud where they can hear it.
Well, thanks.
And they're still taking
I
it
think
in.
that that's a great,
Yeah.
we'll put that up at the end of our credits. We hope that you've enjoyed this segment of The Village. Boy, did this time go by fast,
Yes,
as
it did.
usual. Check out our closing credits for some of the things that we talked about today. And
Yes.
thank you so much, Kristen, for coming to being
Thank
on our
you.
show today.
Thanks
And of
for
course, my
asking me.
lovely co-host, Rachel, thank you again
Thank
for
you.
being here. And I hope people found this segment informative.
Good
Thank
luck
you.
with the school year.
Thank you.